I think your son is like a camera magnet, so he the
You
camera
see him
loves
back
him.
there?
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so I'm going to share the screen here. This is text 25 of the 5th chapter. I guess I'll just read, since you're on the road here, I'll read the translation and purport. This is a story of Nārada Muni, how in the last millennium, which means like over a kalpa ago, like 4.3 billion years ago, in his last life, he was the son of a maidservant, and he was serving some Vedantist Brahmanas. His mother was a servant, and he was the son of this maidservant, and she used to serve these Brahmanas during the rainy season when they were like holed up. They don't like travel and preach when during the rainy season. They just stay in one place, And so he was hanging out with these Vedantists, and he kind of got attracted to them, and with their permission, he took some of his food stuff, some prasadam, and then by listening to them, he became a devotee. And then in his next life, he became Nārada Muni. That is the power of the association of devotees, Just by taking the prasadam and listening to them, he became so purified that he was like the greatest sage in the universe in his next life. Okay, so this is text 25. Uchistalepan anamudito dvija sakritsma bunje tad apasta krubisha evam pravistasya visuddha chetasash tad dharma evatma ruchi parjayate. Synonyms. Uchistalepan, the remnants of foodstuff, anumodita, being permitted, dvijai, by the Vedantist Brahmanas, sakrit, once upon a time, sma, in the past, bunje, took, tat, by that action, apasta, eliminated, kilbisha, all sins, evam, thus, pravistasya, being engaged, visuddha cetasa, of one whose mind is purified, tat, that particular dharma, nature, eva, certainly, atmaruchi, transcendental attraction, prajayate, was manifest. Translation. Once only, by their permission, I took the remnants of their food, and by so doing, all my sins were at once eradicated. Thus being engaged, I became purified in heart, and at that time, the very nature of the transcendentalists became attractive to me. Are you there on the book?
Yep. I got my book out and I'm at the park, so I can read if you need me to.
Okay, yeah, I can read the purport then. Go ahead.
Cool. Pure devotion is as much infectious in a good sense as infectious diseases. A pure devotee is cleared from all kinds of sins. The personality of Godhead is the purest entity. And unless one is equally pure from the infection of material qualities, one cannot become a pure devotee of the Lord. The Bhakti Vedantas, as above mentioned, were pure devotees, and the boy became infected with their qualities of purity by their association and by eating once the remnants of the foodstuff taken by them. Such remnants may be taken even without permission of the pure devotees. There are sometimes pseudo devotees, and one should be very much cautious about them. There are many things which hinder one from entering devotional service, but by the association of pure devotees, all these obstacles are removed. The neophyte devotee becomes practically enriched with the transcendental qualities of the pure devotee, which means attraction for the personality of Godhead's name, fame, quality, pastimes, etc. Infection of the qualities of the pure devotees means to imbibe in the taste of pure devotion, always in the transcendental activities of the personality of Godhead. This transcendental taste at once makes all material things distasteful. Therefore, a pure devotee is not at all attracted by material activities. After the elimination of all sins or obstacles on the path of devotional service, one can become attracted. One can have steadiness. One can have perfect taste. One can have transcendental emotions. And at last, one can be situated on the plane of loving service of the Lord. All these stages develop by the association of pure devotees, and that's the purport of this stanza.
Yeah, these books are also, explain scientifically the different stages of devotional service that one goes through. And by these books, we're associating with Prabhupada personally and the pure devotees like Nārada Muni, because his instructions are non-different from him. So, Rupa Goswami, we're all followers of Rupa Goswami, and he wrote a book called Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, the Nectar of Devotion, which is a transcendental science of this process, step by step. First you get the elimination of sins, then you become attracted, then you have steadiness, then you have taste, ruchi. And when you have taste, then it develops into transcendental emotions, not regular mundane emotions. And then you develop steady attraction, and then you that manifests at the stage of bhava, and then you have a feeling of possessiveness to the Lord, just like he's mine, and and I am his, and then it's like that all there is Krishna then, and you can have these different emotional reciprocations with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But he lays that out scientifically. That's why we're called Rupanugas, because he manifested Lord Chaitanya's desire within this material world. We say that verse every day, Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Swapidamina Bhutale Shrayam Rupa Kadamayan Dadati Swapadandekam. When will Sri Rupa Goswami, who is established within this material world, the mission to fulfill the desire of Lord Chaitanya, give me shelter under his lotus feet? In other words, he knew the mission of Lord Chaitanya, and he's established that by writing these books and laying it out for everybody to understand what the science of devotion is, all the way up to the topmost level of pure love of God. Want to keep going here?
Yeah,
or
absolutely.
Do you want to go home, or do you have enough
No,
light?
I was just gonna stay at the park for the class for the rest of the session. I'll
Stay in the park there.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So we got about, I don't know, 23 minutes left, something like that. All right. So I'll just you can read the next purport again. I'll just read the verse, Sanskrit and synonym. Text 26.
Sounds good.
Tathavanam Krishna Katha Pragayatam Anugrahena Shravana Manohara Ta Shradhaya Me Nupadam Vishrinvita Prayashvavasya Anga Mahamabhavadruchi. Synonyms: Tatra, thereupon, Anu, every day, Aham, I, Krishna Katha, narration of Lord Krishna's activities, Pragayatam, describing, Anugrahena, by causeless mercy, Ashrinvadam, giving oral reception, that means hearing, Manahara, attractive, ta, those, Shradhaya, respectfully, may, unto me, Anupadam, every step, Vishrinvita, hearing attentively, Priyashravasi, of the personality of Godhead, Anga, O Vyāsadeva, Mama, mine, Abhavat, it became, so became, Ruchi, taste. Translation: O Vyāsadeva, in that association and by the mercy of those great Vedantists, I could hear them describe the attractive activities of Lord Krishna, and thus, listening attentively, my taste for hearing of the personality of Godhead increased at every step. Go ahead.
Lord Sri Krishna, the absolute personality of Godhead, is not only attractive in his personal features, but also in his transcendental activities. It is so because the absolute is absolute by his name, fame, form, pastimes, entourage, paraphernalia, etc. The Lord descends on this material world out of his causeless mercy and displays his various transcendental pastimes as a human being, so that human beings are attracted towards him. That human beings are attracted towards him, become able to go back to Godhead. Men are naturally apt to hear histories and narrations of various personalities performing mundane activities without knowing that by such association one simply wastes valuable time and also becomes addicted to the three qualities of mundane nature. Instead of wasting time, one can get spiritual success by turning his attention to the transcendental. By hearing the narrations of the pastimes of the Lord, one contacts directly the personality of Godhead, and as explained before, by hearing about the personality of Godhead from within, all accumulated sins of the mundane creature are cleared. Thus, being cleared of all sins, the hearer gradually becomes liberated from mundane association and becomes attracted to the features of the Lord. Nārada Muni has just explained this by his personal experience. The whole idea is that simply by hearing about the Lord's pastimes, one can become one of the associates of the Lord. Nārada Muni has eternal life, unlimited knowledge, and unfathomed bliss, and he can travel all over the material and spiritual worlds without restriction. One can attain to the highest perfection of life simply by attentive hearing of the transcendental pastimes of the Lord from the right sources, as Sri Nārada heard them from the pure devotees, Bhaktivedantas, in his previous life. This process of hearing and the association of the devotees is especially recommended in this age of quarrel Kali.
Yeah, hearing's the first thing. First process of devotional service is hearing in the association of devotees. Text 27. Tasmins tada labda ruchir mahamate priya shravhasi akalita matirna mama yayaham etad sat asat swamayaya pasye mai brahmani kalpitam pare. Synonyms. Tasmin, it being so, tada, at that time, labdha, achieved, ruchi, taste, mahamate, oh, great sage, prayashravasi, upon the Lord, akalita mati, uninterrupted attention, mama, mine, yaya, by which aham, I, etat, all these, sat asat, gross and subtle, swamayaya, one's own ignorance, pasye, see, mai, in me, brahmani, the supreme kalpitam, is accepted, pare, in the transcendence. Translation: O great sage, as soon as I got a taste of the personality of Godhead, my attention to hear of the Lord was unflinching. And as my taste developed, I could realize that it was only in my ignorance that I had accepted gross and subtle coverings, for both the Lord and I are transcendental. Go ahead.
I love the fact that Nārada is the perfect, bless you, buddy, personified example of the human potential. How he was granted access to both the material and spiritual realms is really fascinating. He has the keys to the entire body of the personality of Godhead.
Yeah, he can go anywhere he wants in no time flat.
Amazing.
He doesn't even need a vehicle. I mean, even when he comes to this world, he just like floats in the air, about 6 inches off the ground, And he went all the way to Vaikuntha, and he was checking out, or he went to Dwarka because he wanted to see how Krishna was living with all his queens. And so he checked out the first palace he went into was Rukmini's palace, of the 16,108 palaces that they had in Dwarka. And in every single one, he introduced himself, and Krishna was doing something different in every single palace. in one palace, it was the morning. He was doing like morning ablations. And another palace was a different time of day even. And, I mean, how does that happen? But then, he was just blown away, and he just kept going in different palaces. And then, when Krishna actually at the end, when he got up, all his queens were bummed out because they knew he had to leave and go to the assembly hall. And so, they were cursing the birds, that woke him up. And then he would get up and meditate on himself, because who else is he going to meditate on? Right. And so then he would go out of the palaces, each of the palaces where the different queens are, but each queen thought that he was only with her. They didn't even know that there are so many other queens and palaces. They just thought that he's with me all the time. But then he would go out and then merge his body into one Krishna, and then he'd go up to the assembly hall and start his day with all his advisors and associates. I mean, you can't beat that. You can't. I mean, why? How can he do that? And how can he have so much enjoyment? He's just making a point. He's God, and we're not. So don't try. Don't even think about it. There is no way that anybody can be greater than or equal to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He could have unlimited wives if he wanted. That's nothing. My friend used to, when I was living in Arizona, my friend was talking about marriage. He said, I can't even take care of myself, what to speak of a wife, But Christian can take care and live peacefully with 16,000 wives, and there's no problem for him.
And that shows you how amazing God is, because Nārada has some pretty amazing mystical powers, and even he was blown away by what Krishna was doing.
He knows everything, but even like Lord Ananta, he's been glorifying Krishna since time immemorial with his 1,000 mouths. He's a 1,000-hooded serpent, and he's holding all the universes on his heads. He's like a huge serpent, and Krishna rests on his serpent bed when he's on the causal ocean. And he's been narrating Krishna's pastimes, but even he can't get to the end of them. Even Krishna himself doesn't know the extent of his glories, because he's unlimited. And then when he figures out like how great he is, then his greatness increases, and then he has to figure it out. So it's like
beautiful.
Anyway, let's do the next one here.
Okay, you want me to read that purport, or?
Yeah, you can read the.
Or we're moving to 28.
Yeah, I'm going to read the text first.
Okay.
Text 28. Itam Sharat. Sharat is like the autumn season. There's a beautiful chapter in the Bhagavatam called this autumn season in the Krishna book, where they're using the different description of autumn to in Vrindavan, and Vyāsadeva uses all these natural phenomenon to make philosophical points, and Prabhupada wanted to present that I think in the 50s or early 60s. He wanted to present that at a conference in Japan. And so he was going to go over there and have some paintings made in Japanese Gobi style. And it's like the Japanese paintings, you've probably seen them all the time, but he wanted to have them depicted, each verse. And so he was going to go over there, but he never made it because he didn't have any money. And but later on, after Prabhupada went back to Godhead, his disciples hired this Gobi artist woman who made all these descriptions, and he printed this book called the Light of the Bhagavat, which are these really beautiful descriptions of the autumn season. And he never was able to present it, but I made a slideshow video out of it And they're really beautiful paintings, in the traditional Gobi style of Japanese art.
Sounds awesome.
Yeah, Prabhupada was always thinking about how to spread Krishna consciousness all over the world. He was thinking about things like that, because devotees are very expert in presenting Krishna consciousness in an attractive way so that people can understand, So, Itam, thus, Sharat, autumn, Parishiko, rainy season, Ritu, 2 seasons, Hare of the Lord, Vishrinvata. Got 10 minutes left here.
Okay.
Continuously hearing, may, myself, Anushavam, constantly, Yasa Amalam, unadulterated glories, Sankaryamanam, Sankirtyamanam, chanted by Munibi, the great sages, Maha Atmibi, great souls, Bhakti, devotional service, Pravrita, began to flow. Atma, living being, Raja, mode of passion, Tama, mode of ignorance, Upaha, vanishing. Translation. Thus, during 2 seasons, the rainy season and autumn, I had the opportunity to hear these great-souled sages constantly chant the unadulterated glories of Lord Hari. As the flow of my devotional service began, the coverings of the modes of passion and ignorance vanished. Good.
Transcendental loving service for the Supreme Lord is the natural inclination of every living being. The instinct is dormant in everyone, but due to the association of material nature, the modes of passion and ignorance cover this from time immemorial. If by the grace of the Lord and the great souled devotees of the Lord, a living being becomes fortunate enough to associate with the unadulterated devotees of the Lord and gets a chance to hear the unadulterated glories of the Lord, certainly the flow of devotional service takes place like the flow of a river. As the river flows on till she reaches the sea, similarly, pure devotional service flows by the association of pure devotees till it reaches the ultimate goal, namely transcendental love of God. Such a flow of devotional service cannot stop. On the contrary, it increases more and more without limitation. The flow of devotional service is so potent that any onlooker also becomes liberated from the influence of the modes of passion and ignorance. These 2 qualities of nature are thus removed, and the living being is liberated, being situated in its original position.
Text 29. Tasyaivam me nuraktasya prasritasya tatainsnasa shadadanasya balasya dantasyanu charasya cha. Synonyms. Tasya, his, evam, thus, me, mine, anuraktasya, attached to them, prasritasya, obediently, hata, freed from, enasa, sins, Shraddhanasya, of the faithful, Balasya, of the boy, Dantasya, subjugated, Anucharasya, strictly following the instructions, Cha, and. Translation. I was very much attached to those sages. I was gentle in behavior, and all my sins were eradicated in their service. In my heart, I had strong faith in them. I had subjugated the senses, and I was strictly following them with body and mind. Go ahead.
These are the necessary qualifications of a prospective candidate who can expect to be elevated to the position of a pure, unadulterated devotee. Such a candidate must seek always the association of pure devotees. One should not be misled by a pseudo devotee. He himself must be plain and gentle to receive the instructions of such a pure devotee. A pure devotee is a completely surrendered soul unto the personality of Godhead. He knows the personality of Godhead as the supreme proprietor and all others as his servitors. And by the association of pure devotees only, one can get rid of all sins accumulated by mundane association. A neophyte devotee must faithfully serve the pure devotee and he should be very much obedient and strictly follow the instructions. These are the signs of a devotee who is determined to achieve success even in the existing duration of life.
I would say he did that.
No doubt.
In his next birth, he was Nārada Muni. Jnanam Gyatamam Yatat Śikṣāṣtaka Anvavochan Gamisyanta Kripayadina Vatsala. Synonyms: Jnanam, knowledge; Guyatamam, most confidential; Yat, what is; Tat, that; Śikṣāt, directly; Bhagavata Uditam, propounded by the Lord himself; Anvavochan, gave instruction; Gamisyanta, while departing from; Kripaya, by causeless mercy; Dinavatsala, those who are very kind to the poor and meek. Translation: as they were leaving, those Bhaktivedantas who are very kind to poor-hearted souls instructed me in that most confidential subject which is instructed by the personality of Godhead himself. Okay.
A pure Vedantist, or a Bhakti Vedanta, instructs followers exactly according to the instructions of the Lord himself. The personality of Godhead, both in the Bhagavad Gita and in all other scriptures, has definitely instructed men to follow the Lord only. The Lord is the creator, maintainer, and annihilator of everything. The whole manifested creation is existing by his will, and by his will, when the whole show will be finished, he will remain in his eternal abode with all his paraphernalia. Before the creation, he was there in the eternal abode, and after the annihilation, he will continue to remain. He is not, therefore, one of the created beings. He's transcendental. In the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says that long, long ago, the instructions were imparted to Arjuna, the same way it was instructed to the sun god, and in the course of time, the same instructions being wrongly handled and being broken was again re-instructed to Arjuna, because he was his perfect devotee and friend. Therefore, the instructions of the Lord can be understood by the devotees only and no one else. The impersonalist, who has no idea of the transcendental form of the Lord, cannot understand this most confidential message of the Lord. The word most confidential is significant here because knowledge of devotional service is far, far above knowledge of impersonal Brahman. Jnana means ordinary knowledge or any branch of knowledge. This knowledge develops up to the knowledge of impersonal Brahman. Above this, when it is partially mixed with devotion, such knowledge develops to knowledge of Paramatma, or the all-pervading Godhead. This is more confidential, but when such knowledge is turned into pure devotional service, the confidential part of transcendental knowledge is attained. It is called the most confidential knowledge. This most confidential knowledge was imparted by the Lord to Brahma, Arjuna, Uddhava, etc.
Okay, we're going to have to stop here. You mentioned we just got a couple of minutes left. You mentioned you're actually trying to speak to one of your friends from school.
Yeah.
Girl is a Christian.
Yeah, I think she's merging into Krishna consciousness. I think it's happening without her noticing.
Well, that's really good. I mean, I have a book for you. I want to give it to you. It was one of the best books that my spiritual master, who was actually raised as a son of a Baptist minister, Prabhupada actually asked him to talk about Krishna consciousness and Christianity, and he wrote this book here. Did you see that?
Yep.
I'm going to give this to you. So text me your address and I'll send it to you. And you can
so
give
much,
that to your, you can give that to your friend.
Thank you. I really appreciate
Yeah, I mean,
it.
you can read it yourself. I'll also I'll also give you the little QR code in the book that you can listen to it and she can listen to it. I've narrated the whole thing. So
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you very much for joining. And we got less
Thank
than a minute left. Do you have any quick questions?
Thank you for having this platform, using
Oh,
it.
no
to
problem.
reward
You know, it's my
whatnot.
pleasure. It's the only thing that I'm interested in doing. I hope that I can follow in the footsteps of Narada Muni and then just become steady. First, you have to have a taste. And then when, it's like during the pandemic, I was reading like crazy because I didn't have anything else to do. I'm just like one of these lazy Americans that didn't do anything during the pandemic. But I was like a genie in the bottle, out of the bottle, because I wanted to read more and more. And when I got done with Prabhupada's books, I was thinking, oh my God, what am I going to read now? Then I realized, oh yeah, there's all the other books by all these other Vaishnavacharyas. So I knew I was good for life, at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm old, I'm not going to be able to get all this read. But